Yeah, and I feel like when that I like to look at it as a bridge of trust. When that bridge of trust has been torn down, um, sometimes you got to do 100% more than you would normally have to do.
Got to go above and beyond sometimes.
Yeah, and I know sometimes dads that have, because nobody's perfect, and you may be a dad that has dropped the ball from time to time before, and that trust from your kids has been broken. But I just want to encourage you today that, hey, you need to be patient in the healing process of your kids. Just because you have changed, and you really have changed at that instant, that doesn't mean that your kids have gotten over it at that point, and that they truly believe that you have changed. Sometimes when you change, you got to keep doing what you're doing and going, far and beyond. And a lot of times in those relationships, even with your kids, you may be giving 80% and they're only coming with 20%. But dads, you gotta swallow that pill,
Yeah.
because you had the trust and you broke it. So it's like you gotta keep fighting. And sometimes I've seen cases where I've actually seen several cases where that trust of the dad has been broken, and they're not really able to rebuild that trust until grandkids come into the picture. And it's a funny thing, but it's like some dads, they become great grandparents, and in that same process they become better dads to their children through their grandchildren. Not saying everybody has to wait that long,
Right.
but I've seen a trend of that happening in our communities where they're great grandparents, and then that helps them become better fathers. But you just got to be patient, man, and you can't try and rush the kids. You got to let it be natural. And sometimes, hey, let's say if it took you 15 years where that bridge had been broken and there was nothing done to restore that trust, and then 15 years later, then you try and fix things back up, it's not all gonna get fixed in 2 or 3 years.
That's right.
Okay, you might not even have a sit down conversation about some real serious issues and getting to the core of the problems. It can be 3 years have passed since you've reunited with your child, and it still hasn't gotten down to that core because they're not ready to have that conversation yet. But you got to be okay with that.
Yeah. I've seen that, what you're talking about.
You pretty much got to let them heal at their own pace. And a lot of times you might be saying, I love you, and it might not be, no, I love you back. But you got to let people grow the way they grow, you know? I can't tell you,
journey is different.
You're supposed to heal, you got to heal right now. That's not fair to them. They were hurt. And that doesn't mean that they haven't forgiven you, but they just haven't gotten to that point where they're that comfortable with you. So
everybody's journey is different, right?
Yeah.
I was kind of thinking about what you were saying, and I've seen situations like that before where the grandparent, actually becomes like a great grandparent, but they weren't necessarily a great parent.
Yeah.
And it's almost kind of like they're getting a do-over.
Yeah.
Right. It's kind of like, hey, and I think it's actually kind of commendable in a lot of ways. The pain that you have to go through to do that is not ideal, right? But I think it's kind of commendable that they realize the mistakes that they made with their children. And maybe they decide to say, some of the situations I've seen where they decide to say, hey, I'm not going to make those same mistakes with my grandkids.
Yeah.
I think it's commendable in those situations.